So I feel like the battleground for the next elections are moving into the schoolroom, universities, but especially schools, grammar schools, high schools. A professor named Peter Boghossian became just the latest teacher and professor to resign this week because of what's going on in the schools. And I've been talking about this for a couple of years, and it's interesting. At first, people were going, "What are you talking about?" That, if you didn't have kids, or a lot of times kids come home from school and they don't tell their parents what they're being told in school. People didn't know. Now I think it's becoming much more of an issue. And who votes? Parents vote. Young people, they got parties to go to, and you're single, you don't have a mortgage, your parents vote. And this guy, he says about his university, he had to resign, it has transformed a bastion of free inquiry into a social justice factory whose only inputs are race, gender, and victimhood, and whose only outputs are grievance and division. I want to read a few other teachers, so you know that this is everywhere. This is a teacher in Connecticut, Jennifer Tafuto, resigned. I decided to resign from what I thought was my forever career because I felt more like a political activist than a teacher in my own classroom. What's going on in classrooms across our country is pitting students against each other based on the color of their skin. In Virginia, Laura Mara says, I was told in one of my so-called equity trainings that white Christian able-bodied females currently have the power in our schools, and that has to change. She then says a dissenting opinion is not allowed even to be spoken in my personal life.
Amazing to call attention to this. I love that Bill Maher is sort of now edging over into really what conservatives try to talk about, and that is free speech. And he elevates this story and talks about not only Peter Boghossian, who is now a very well-known professor, but other teachers who are experiencing this, showing that it is a much larger issue than one might think just simply going on Twitter and seeing, videos from school boards and these different essays that professors are writing. Wokeness as an infringement upon actual learning, on actual free speech, and actual just factual learning is so real.
Oh, sorry. Oh, you're coming to me? Okay. Well, Taylor had his mouth open. No, it is incredibly real. I mean, it's really the real, the realest thing that we're dealing with right now.
Because it's the real.
Vanilla Ice over here.
Yeah, no, Vanilla Ice. But when you have an entire society that is built on not letting other people have an opinion because that opinion might be deemed offensive or because that opinion might hurt someone else's feelings, then what do you get as a society? You get weak people who can't deal with any sort of conflict or anything else inside their life. So Peter Boghossian, I mean, him coming out and quitting his job for this, I mean, it makes total sense. If I was in the same position as him, I would do the same. I'm glad Bill Maher's coming out and talking about it. I don't know what the other people on the panel said about it. I don't have HBO to watch his show. I'm sure they were fine. But it's scary times, man, because this is kind of the way that it is. It's like they don't totally operate on an anti-First Amendment route, okay? Because him being a university professor and the people in charge of the university coming and saying you can't teach about this is not an infringement on your First Amendment rights, but it is an infringement on you being able to say true things, which isn't really a protected thing in the Constitution, but he's not having his First Amendment rights specifically infringed upon. So that's kind of this gray area that these people work on when you're at this university level, and it's like, we're going to tell you that we're not going to take away your right to say it, but if you do say it, we're going to totally shame you and make sure that you don't get funding and make sure that the students all hate you and are allowed to write horrible things about you in the student newspaper and write Nazi symbols on the bathrooms about you, and all that's going to be totally fine, but we're not really taking away your First Amendment right. And that's how they work on this.
Yeah, that's the same thing that happened too at Evergreen with Brett Weinstein and Heather Heying a couple of years ago. We've seen this over and over again. I tell you, I actually sympathize with the professors and teachers in these situations because these are people who have dedicated their entire lives and career to, in the professor's case, free inquiry and the exploration of ideas and trying to help students how to learn to think critically and think for themselves and be exposed to different perspectives and ideas. And that's what, if you read Boghossian's resignation letter, that's exactly what he's talking about. And then for some of these middle school, high school, elementary school teachers who are being forced to indoctrinate students and teach curriculum that is clearly against their, not only against their values, but you're teaching them what to think instead of how to think. And when you imagine devoting your entire life to something and all of a sudden you're now being told like you're not allowed to do your job according to the traditional sense of what it means to educate someone. You're required now to teach these radical ideas and teach this radical ideology as fact, and anything less than that is unacceptable. And it is a courageous thing to say, no, I'm not going to do that. But I feel for them and sympathize for them, because you're having to walk away from everything you've invested your entire life in. And then where do you go from there? I mean, I'm sure there are other schools, and those, school choice, there should be other places to go that do enshrine truth and do hold to liberal values and don't teach indoctrination. But it is sad, because even then you develop a relationship with your students, and they genuinely care. Right? If you know teachers that are good teachers, they genuinely care about their students and the people that they have the opportunity to invest into their lives for a season. And it's just such a shame, because good teachers are rare enough to find, and the fact that they're being forced out of their jobs now just for refusing to indoctrinate is really sad.
Yeah, and forget that ideology is not only harmful to the professors and teachers who are trying to do a good job, but it's mostly harmful to the students. Now, if you are a woke leftist, or you believe in socialism or communism, by all means, sure, that's fine. Explain why you believe that, and I will listen. But when you're in college and you're talking about these ideologies, you should hear all different opinions. You should hear all different stories. You should hear all different ideologies. And that will either make your stance stronger, or it will make your stance crumble. But you should never sort of blockade yourself off from hearing the opinions of others, hearing the theories of others, hearing what other people have to say, because it's not going to help you in the long run. And again, if you listen to everything and all the different opinions and the spectrum of ideas, and you still land where you're at with the wokeism and the socialism and the communism, by all means, you did your due diligence. But now we're not even asking students to do due diligence. We are just asking them to show up in a classroom where they will get their one-size-fits-all education, and we're sending them on their way into the world where we know these things don't work.